There it is. Holy shit. Did I jump scare you, Carly? Hello, beautiful people of the internet. How we all doing? It's book club time. Screw it. We don't need a full intro song. We can just get after it. Hi, everybody. How's it going? Lambrick says, me, planning everything I might need for the next 3 hours every time I get up. Also me, remembers everything to hang out for stream except for the damn book. Grab the damn book. Lambrecht, come on. Lambrecht, get it together. Lock in. Hi, Hero. You're being annoying. But yes, you do get a treat. Nice shirt. Hey, thanks. How we all doing? Lock in, Lambrecht. Hello, welcome to stream. We got some dog treats. These treats come from Rosie Zuma, Carly Catilla, Rosie Zuma. It's book club time, baby. Have you seen too much of me this weekend? Well, that's too damn bad. We're running it back. I should have made myself a latte. Oh, no. What are the odds? Oh. What are the odds I could convince Megan? What are the odds?
Hello, I'm playing the Swiveler. I can't talk right now.
What'd you just say? You're playing the Swiveler?
Yeah.
She's playing the Swiveler. Okay, we can't talk right now.
Oh God. Oh God, I almost fell.
Oh God.
No, I can talk. I can talk and swivel. Oh.
Okay.
I think though, when you play in an open lobby, half the people are under 10 years old, and so
I think they might be actual AI.
well, that may be true too, because people are terrible. I played the Swiveler for 5 seconds and 4 people fell off.
Megan, all of chat is saying, H, lock in. You got this. Not the Swiveler.
Thanks, guys.
They believe in you.
I'm on the final round, so.
I don't want to stress you out, but I have a question for you when you get a chance.
Okay, what's up?
So, have you had a latte this afternoon yet?
No, I haven't. I forgot.
Do you
That's
want
what I was
one?
gonna do.
Yeah.
Ice cream.
Do you want one?
I do want one. Do you want me to make you one too?
I'm doing that terrible thing.
Are you calling to ask? You know the kind of day I've had, and you're calling to ask me to make you a latte right now?
I pulled the phone away from the microphone. That's how ashamed I am right now of what you just said. I just called to ask to see if you were getting one, and if you were getting one, if you would mind throwing a second one in there. You don't have to. I can happily. I'll get one when I'm done here. Don't worry about it. All of chat is giving me so much shit right now. Do not do it. Do not do it. You're already on childcare duty while I do stream. What's going on?
Well, I'm doing one I haven't done before. It's called the Pine Climb, and I'm not doing so hot. I fell.
I believe in you. Pine Climb.
Yeah.
Ryan, put us on BRB and go make one for Meg.
I'll be able to stay, but hope you're all doing well.
I should.
H, by the way.
I should, but it's not a particularly short process, and this hour-long stream is going to turn into a 2-hour stream if I...
I'm going to make you a latte. I'm done. I lost.
I love you so much. Thank you so much. You're the absolute fucking best. Don't worry. Spoil Megs will happen the minute that stream is done.
Okay, love you. Bye.
Okay, love you. Bye. Guys, I can't put it on BRB because lattes are not a particularly... They're not a hard process, but they're just not a particularly quick process. H is in the fucking chat for the greatest of all time. The greatest to ever do it. The greatest of all time. Megan. Anyways, we're talking about housekeeping. I can't wait. I absolutely cannot wait. Uzai, thank you very much for the 27 months. I hope you'll be able to stay. H, by the way, how y'all doing? Hope you're having a great day. We're going to get into the Discord convo in like 5 minutes. But before that, how are you doing? Quick check-in. Hope you're doing okay today. Very very quick little announcement. We're going to, at the end of this conversation, I'm going to tell you guys how we're going to completely change book club, how we select the books that we're reading, and some opportunities for you to help us with that. So we're going to try something new as soon as we're done today, including be thinking about this. If you're sitting there bored, be thinking about this. If you could recommend one book for book club to read, what would it be and why? Be thinking about that because you'll have a chance to actually recommend a book here in just a little bit. Jab says, I made pot roast and cornbread for dinner today. That sounds delicious, especially cornbread. I'm a big cornbread fan. I've just decided I like this book. It took some time. Dude, I am very interested to see how this conversation goes. Because holy shit, I have thoughts. No, we'll get into it when we get into it. But I think this is in some ways the easiest, and in some ways, not the easiest probably, but in some ways the easiest and the most difficult book we've read for book club. And I'm interested to see what people think and hear some thoughts and have some discussion. I can't wait. Can't wait. Can I get a show of hands of who is here to talk about the book? Who's here to talk about the book? If you're here to just hang out, that's fine too. Be welcome. But show of hands of who is here and has either read the book or read most of the book or read part of the book. Who's here to talk about housekeeping? Carly, Rune Snips, me, Rosie Catilla, Cal the Revelator, MK read part of the book. Let's go. Bye, Uzai. I'm so sorry. I'll definitely make the VOD available. Don't worry. Who else? Lambrecht. You're not getting me in voice call because I'm a barely human grumpus. That's A-okay. Guess who could make it but didn't get to finish it? That's okay. The good news is, I think we could still talk about the book if you want to. No pressure. But I'm here for the treats, brother. Zuma knows exactly what they're doing. Book recommendations, yeah, that'll be at the end of stream. And in the Discord. Okay, cool. I'm gonna go hop over in the stream chat and please join me for a voice call. Very chill voice call. We're just gonna talk about the book and work through our thoughts. You can hop in the general voice chat in Discord and I'll drag you on over. Catilla says, I can't wait for someone to explain this book to me, which I don't worry. I'm not going to explain it to you, but I will have plenty of questions. I'm not going to voice call, but I will type my thoughts if that's okay. That's A-okay. You can be a typer. You can be a chatter. Either way. But I would love some people to voice call with if anybody is brave and able to be vocal. Zuma's just here for the treats, brother. I wish I were brave enough for voice chat, but alas, I am mentally ill. This is not me trying to pressure you into voice call. Don't worry, most of us are. You're totally good. I wish I could be brave. Maybe next time. No pressure. But I'm currently sitting in a stream voice call alone. You could be that person. That makes my day. Hops in. Gentle encouragement from me. Carly's finishing up some work stuff real quick. No worries. Eva says retweet to the mentally ill comment. Retweet. Damn. All right, we'll see how this goes. I severely underestimated how long it would take to read this incredibly dense and prosaic, is that a word? Book? Maybe voice call for a book I actually finish next time. No worries. Do not be scared to chat, y'all. Do not be scared to chat. This is a no judgment, fun little zone. Uh-oh. It might just be me. I think Carly will eventually join me, right, Carly? We could always do that. Just me on camera, everybody else in Twitch chat. Carly will be there. I'm hustling. That's totally okay. Lecture as teacher? Oh boy, I will not be lecturing, and I am no longer a teacher. I haven't read the book. No worries. I'm too shy. My voice is kind of busted from belting at the concert yesterday. Who'd you see in concert? Ikelos said I also thought the book would be easier to read, but I kind of had too little time this month. Maybe let's just start there. Is that experience speaking to anyone else? The experience of, oh, look, it's only a 5-hour audiobook. It's only a 200-page book. Oh, no. This is taking me more effort to read than I would have guessed. I'll raise my own hand on that one. Absolutely. Currently, I definitely was like, oh boy. Part of that was so for me, there's a section in here that I did not mark up, probably a like 40-page section kind of towards the end. But other than that, I was annotating, which is just a fancy word for writing notes, on every single page. Every single page. 3 pages in a row. 4 pages in a row. Not a lot, but plenty of underlining. And sometimes a little bit, sometimes a little bit. To me, it was effortful reading for sure. Effortful reading. Especially maybe compared, this isn't a literature class, especially maybe compared to, let's say, a Howl's Moving Castle, which keeps things flowing pretty easily and pretty quickly from one thing to the next. What kind of monster writes in their book? The kind of monster that hopes to understand it better. The kind of monster that hopes to enter a dialogue between the characters, myself, and the author. I spent the first maybe 50 pages trying to figure out if things were performatively dense or usefully dense, and then I got a little more into the flow of it. Lambrecht, had you read any Marilynne Robinson before? Out of curiosity? Because I had a kind of similar thought towards the start, but I had been primed for Marilynne Robinson by a teacher of mine in grad school who was in love with, not actually in love with, but who was adored Marilynne Robinson, and so I had some expectation. You had not. Okay, cool. Took me about 50 pages to get into the flow of the writing. Okay, so that's kind of our like quick experience at the start. Let's talk about a quick experience towards the end, or however far you got into it. If at the start we were like, oh boy, this is taking more effort and attention to get through than I would have originally guessed, what was the vibe towards by the end, or as far as you got? Oh my God, Carly's here. Hi, Carly.
Hello.
Hi, how's it going?
It's going.
Carly gets the award today for being the brave person to hop into voice call.
I'll take one for the team.
This is becoming one of the, first off, thank you, seriously, from the bottom of my heart. This is becoming one of the small hurdles of book club, is like how to get people yapping.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's hard. And I don't blame anybody. Of course not. Okay, so question is, what was your like reading experience like towards the end of the book, after you had maybe gotten used to the denseness, after you had gotten used to the style? Ikelos is saying, I felt like most of the information was obsolete, but I guess it might all come together in the end. We'll talk about that kind of thing in a little bit. I feel like I didn't really care about any characters until the second half of the book, so the second half was way easier to read once you started to care about characters. Catilla says the ending read fast, but I didn't like it. Carly, any thoughts on, you finished last night, right? A whole 12 hours ahead of book club.
I know, a
new record for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
How'd you feel?
Last time I literally finished, like as stream was starting, I was reading the last pages.
I love that. How'd you feel about like chart your reading experience, how it felt to sit down with the book?
Well, I started it like right after we picked the book. I read 3 pages and I was like, nope, I'm getting the audiobook for this one.
Yeah. Oh my God, Megan, thank you.
And so then I read along on my Kindle as I listened.
Perfect. Megan made me a latte. She tried to do latte art with a heart on it, but it didn't quite work out. But I still appreciate you. Meg made a heart for herself. Meg. Hell yeah. Thank you. Thanks, babe. You read along with the Kindle while listening to the audiobook, yeah.
Yeah, which I think helped because it is. I don't know. It's not difficult, but it's just a lot.
Yeah. No, I think it's fair to call it difficult, honestly, to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did like it. I think I liked the second half better.
Yeah. I think that's seeming to be kind of similar. Rosie says, the last 80 pages read faster, maybe because of more plot. Catilla says something similar. RuneSnip says, I started to struggle as soon as I figured out things were going downhill for Ruth. It was emotionally rough for me. Yeah.
That's fair. It was very sad.
It was very sad. Yeah. It was very sad. I say that with a big grin on my face, which is fucked up of me, but also as a person who loves what sad books can do for us, I am a fucked up person.
Yeah.
But it's okay.
Hey, sometimes the sad stuff's the good stuff. It's just
Yeah.
hard in the moment.
Absolutely. And I don't think this is a particularly happy book, period. But it does still make me happy to read it, and we'll get into that a little bit more. But Lambrick said, this is a version of what my initial impression of the book was. If Ruthie is operating chiefly as reportage of other people's thoughts, a reading that I'm not necessarily wedded to, then I liked the second half better because I got so tired of Lucille, and I do like Sylvie. And you're just necessarily like reporting more on Sylvie the more you get into the second half. Yeah. I think there's a really interesting thing. Maybe we should talk about that. I think one way into this book to like sort of okay, so before we get any further, the thing I was saying earlier is I think this is a really difficult book. I think it's a quote unquote easy book in that it's like 200 pages. Like in terms of describing the plot, you could describe it in 2 sentences, but I think it's really difficult in terms of what it asks of the reader, like what it's asking you to pay attention to and to refer back to and to imagine for the characters and to understand about the characters to bring to the table. I think it's asking you a lot. I also think that I'm not saying that works or doesn't work. I'm not saying that makes the book good or bad, but I think it means that our conversation might help us a lot in terms of like deciding whether or not it's good or bad for us or whatever, because there's probably stuff that went over. Like I was reading 5 minutes before stream, I was looking back at a section and I was like, oh my God, that part references a thing that happened in the first 40 pages that I didn't actually really think about. So hopefully the next hour we can talk about some of those things, come together on like what other people saw in the book that we may not have, or what we saw that other people didn't, and go from there. We should definitely talk about Ruth as a narrator because she's fucking interesting. Lambrecht said, is Ruth mostly reporting on other people's thoughts and opinions and all of that? And I think the answer is like for a lot of the book, yeah. Like for a ton of the book. Which is weird, right? Like we're not particularly used to reading stuff like that. So the immediate question is like, why? Why would anyone do that? Why would you have a narrator who mostly comments on the thoughts of other people? Does anyone have any quick instinctual reactions to that question? Cald says, I thought it was so interesting that Ruthie was literally never her own character and exercised no agency over the entirety of the narrative, even up to the very end. Oh, see, this is interesting. I'm agreeing with you until the very last second. I think at the end, there is a moment where she takes agency over her narrative. I think there's basically one moment in the entire fucking book when it happens, which makes it really interesting. But other than that, basically no, right? Lambrecht says, Ruthie is keeping the house. She's the lore master. So she's like, her job is to keep track of the story and then to provide it to us, right? So the question is, why would you have a narrator that is basically not really like present in the story for a lot of it, or like not reporting on her own thoughts for most of it? Cal says, I'm curious what moment you're thinking of. So to me, the one place where Ruthie sort of starts exercising her will over the situation is running out into the orchard at night. with like probably 20 pages to go. And then staying out there hiding
Yeah.
from Sylvie. We can talk about that
Yeah,
again in
I
a
would
bit
agree with
because-
that.
Yeah, we can talk about that in a bit because I think that's probably a later in the conversation, but because I think that's more about where Ruthie ends up. But where we start with Ruthie is very different than that. Okay, so I have a quote on page 98 of my book, which I underlined, and I think is important for thinking about this. This is where we're like halfway through the book. Sylvie is already there. And they're getting used to Sylvie. So this is early when like Lucille and Ruth still think a lot of the same things. The quote says, in recollection, I feel no reluctance to speak of Lucille and myself almost as a single consciousness, even through the course of that summer, though often enough she was restless and morose. We always stayed in the woods until it was evening, and when it was not bitterly cold, we stayed on the shore, etc., etc. So she interrupts her own narrative there to say a thing that she's done for 100 straight pages. She finally interrupts herself and says, there's this moment where I'm starting to debate, am I still comfortable calling us a we? Because that's right where we sort of see the split between Lucille and Ruthie towards more separate characters. So to me, we have this narrator who's like very comfortable to talk about the two daughters together, like the two granddaughters together, but then has to slowly start to interrupt and like mess with her her authority over reporting what Lucille feels to. Catilla says, I think she reads as being traumatized / experiencing dissociation with how she never addresses any of her feelings or thoughts. But I think it's really strange to not really explore that in the book. I felt no connection to her because of that. Other thoughts on that? Reactions?
See, now the problem with me being the only one on this call with you is that
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to put any of my thoughts into words here.
And I did the professor thing where I just sit back and sip my coffee and let the silence reign.
Yeah.
So one question I sort of have about it is, or one way I would think about it maybe would be like, how would this story be different if from the very beginning Lucille and Ruthie read as very different people on the page? That would be a different book, right? How would that book be different? What would it do for our experience? What would it do for the characters? To me, they read very similar for like 100 pages and then they split apart. How would it be different if they were different from the start? Oculus
I
says, I
don't
feel like they
know.
experienced so much trauma together, right? I sometimes feel like in some days of my past, my brother and I are the same person. So Oculus says, to me, it kind of feels realistic in a way when you're two children, at least to his experience, when you're two children in a bad situation together, in some ways you do sort of share an experience. Sorry, what were we going to say, Carly?
Yeah. I would agree with that though, because like, as an example, like me and my brother, like when my parents were getting divorced, like you're kind of like the only two people who know exactly what's going on in like that family unit, and you kind of are linked very closely together, especially when you're really young.
Yeah.
But it would have been interesting to get to see like the opposite perspective, especially in like the second half, like after they split.
Yeah.
Because especially because like she wants like out and away.
Lucille wants out
from like Sylvie. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Rinsnip says, I understood that the sisters holding on to each other very closely when they were young, as their sisterhood was the one consistent thing in their lives. It was so sad to realize that the reason they didn't make a big deal regarding Sylvie's mental health and the state of their house was to hold their family together once they learned they could be taken away from Sylvie. Lambrick says, nothing ever really teaches Ruthie that she can exert agency. Her examples of that are pretty much exclusively people who abandon specifically her, things she usually frames as a kind of escape, which is so interesting. Yeah, rather than framing the people who leave her as them abandoning her, she frames them as other people escaping from their own situations, like her mom, like her grandma. Eventually, Lucille learns how to exert agency from absorbing the quote-unquote proper way to be from media and peers, and the available counterexample is the opposite of that, taken to a point of tragic absurdity, affectionate. I love that. That raises a question about how we all feel about Sylvie, and I think we know how Lambrecht feels, which is quote-unquote affectionate. To me, I think to add to this conversation, I think the early sections, I don't know that I've read a book. Okay, Carly, you read this, right? You read We the Animals by Justin Torres, right?
I did, yeah.
Okay. So this is random, but like to me, the beginning of this book has a sort of We the Animals like vibe to it, where it's like it's a narrator who is describing what happened to two children as a group rather than two children as individuals. The sort of thing that can happen when something super traumatic is going on in a fucked up household situation where you are sort of shunted to the side, and like your role as children is to not be present for the important conversations, to be listening to them from the other side of the door, to be shuttled from one parent relative to another because you are a burden and you are someone's responsibility, to, you know, with like an enormous family history of tragedy and all of these terrible events happening to them. They are like, I felt like, and maybe this is also as a kid of divorce and all that shit, but I was like, yeah, I do feel like this is me and my sister being a unit before we were people ourselves, being sort of shifted side to side, or shifted from one situation to another.
Yeah. I don't remember a ton about the other book, We the Animals, like, because I read it, but it was a while ago. But I had a moment last night where I'm like, this does kind of have a similar vibe.
Yeah, I think it's the plural. I think it's the plural perspective towards the start. At least for me, it's the plural the plural perspective where it's like novels. Like, it's so interesting to me. Novels are like so often a window into one person's mind. Like, the thing that writing does that other things don't do as well is like you take us in one person's mind, you show us the shape of their thoughts, and you let us live inside of their head. So why would you ever do that but make it two people or a group rather than an individual? And I think the first half of this book is kind of difficult because you're doing that. You're super far from the inside of Ruthie's head. You're just instead hearing a story about what happened to them and not what Ruthie thinks about it. And even towards the end, Ruthie is not a particularly like exerting agency character like we're talking about. So then let's track that into the second half, right? There's the split, the big schism that happens. Sylvie becomes their live-in parent, and Ruthie feels... How would you guys describe this? How would you say Ruthie and Lucille feel about Sylvie in their like first pages, in their first pages or moments together? And if you have page references, that's even better. How do they feel? Cal says, after finishing the book, I think it reads as if Ruthie is a stranger you've met along the way, maybe on a train or bus, and she's relaying the abridged events of her life to you, which I think accounts for a lot of the character condensing that does occur. Yeah. I like that thought. I had not had that thought. One of those strange stories that Sylvie tells. So what is the difference between how Ruthie and Lucille feel about Sylvie? Aculus says, abridged? Excuse me.
At least to me, it seemed like Ruthie was more like connected to Sylvie, and Lucille is more like, I don't know, like embarrassed, I guess, at times, and
yeah,
maybe like a little bit ashamed.
Yeah. I'm going to find the line because it made me spit out my coffee when I first read it. Oh, yeah. Lucille forgave her, talking about Sylvie. Lucille forgave her nothing. And then a page later, she herself regarded Sylvie with sympathy, but no mercy and no tolerance. Like, I think Ruthie
Yeah.
immediately has a sort of sympathy. Maybe it's that they're kindred spirits because, of course, they're so similar in a way. But there's some sort of connection there, and also probably just some gratitude or from like I've had a fucked up childhood, and this is the person who is currently, quote unquote, saving us from that. But Lucille is just like a hard line on Sylvie.
Yeah.
I didn't even feel like I was being told a story, Katilla
kind
said.
of-
I felt like I was reading a textbook or something, or a newspaper or something. What made you feel that way, Katilla? What were we going to say, Carly?
I was just gonna say, like, especially for Ruthie though, because they had those, what were they, like the great aunts
Mm-hmm.
that were with them for like a minute, and then they were like, the second they could get out, they were out.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know. It's understanding that Ruthie would cling then even harder.
Yeah. Which I don't know how other people felt about the great aunts, but I was like, I fucking know these people, dude. These people went to church with me growing up. Like, these are the Midwestern
Yes.
great aunts of the world. Like, I know both of them. I can hear them, like, basically completing each other's sentences. Like, I know them.
Mm-hmm.
I just
Yeah.
feel like Marilyn Robinson writes old Midwestern person so fucking well. Ugh. The fact, like, you can sense, like, what I really loved about the Great Aunts is, and this is a total tangent, but like, the minute they had decided they would not stay, it was completely clear in the subtext of what they were saying, despite the fact that they were saying everything else. Like, they were saying we'll stay, or like the girls need help, or whatever, for like 10 pages before they started saying the opposite. But you could just tell that they were like, this can't be our job. Oh. But they're so polite too that everything leaks into, like, they're so like polite and concerned with like being like proper, basically, that they just can't actually say how they feel. Anyways, the great aunts were fucking me up, dude. They were so funny. Tilla says, I just really did not feel a connection to any of the characters. I think that prevents me from feeling like a person told me a story. Okay, yeah. I do think that Cal's point there about, or the point you even made about, like, I felt like I was reading something in a newspaper, I think says something about the, like, first off, there's all of the newspaper references about their family story being told in a newspaper that I think is interesting. I think it also says something about the sort of, like, emotional distance, right, between the narrator and what's happening. Like, one of the things that, oh, what's that line? There's that line. Ruthie says something about Sylvie, which is that basically she could not possibly pay attention to what was happening in front of her because it was way more interesting the moment it became a story that she would tell later, or a story that she would be told later, or a memory. There's this like thing that kind of fucked me up emotionally about this book, which was that, like, one of the things, this is getting ahead of myself, but like one of the things I think the book is about is sort of the way that what's in front of you, what's real, quote unquote, what you're seeing, is in some ways so less important than what you're imagining, remembering, dreaming, telling as a story 10 years later. Like, Sylvie is constantly, like, off in La La Land, and she and Ruth share something, which is this ability to basically, like, dream dreams that that make them dissociate a little bit, to borrow a word from earlier. But that's a real problem for, like, most people in their, like, if you as a person walked around and the people in front of you who are directly in front of you, ready to be loved in that moment, couldn't actually be something you could interact with, really. They had to sort of become stories in your head later, or had to become memories later before you could love them. That would be a real problem. And I think it is, frankly, a little bit of a problem for all of us, just to a much less exaggerated degree. I'm rambling right now, but my evidence for this fact is this. Ruthie says a really kind of terrible kind of enlightening thing about her own mom, which is that if her mom would not have done the thing where if her mom would not have, offed herself, like she would not have become so clear to her daughters. She says the thing about like she would not have been quote unquote transfigured for her daughters. The only reason she eventually became the story and the presence in their lives as they move forward is because of that. She's not saying it's positive. She's saying like that in that way, I think. I'm sorry, guys, I'm rambling. Basically, I think Ruthie is saying the people who are not in front of us are sometimes more important than the people who are, and that's one way that happens. Because our mom did that thing, she lords over the rest of our lives and is there in every day of our activity because we think of her in that way. I'll stop rambling now and read more comments in chat, but I just had to get that out there. Ruthie's older, right? Lucille's always less invested in the family story, whereas Ruthie's more invested. Yeah. The great aunts were a different kind of transient. Sometimes I forget they were even in the book. The constant recurrence of the idea of love being shown as this sort of quiet lack of acknowledgement and coexistence demonstrates a deep dysfunction throughout the way the love is shown in the family, which becomes a generational wound. Yeah. The absence of important people can change you forever, for sure. Let's maybe just get into that, right? Like, what do you think this book is about? Not on a plot level, because I think we can all agree the plot is pretty simple. Two daughters get shuffled from family to family after a series of tragedies affects their family, and they grow their own separate ways. What do you think this book is about? Like emotionally, like at its heart of hearts. Like, what is the soul of this book? Like, Subnautica is not about the ocean, right? It's about something different. What is the different thing? What is the like beating heart of this story to you? And I think there's no wrong answer here. I think what you take away from it is what you take away from it. But like, what's it about to you? Carly, whenever I say these things, you do not have to go first. Just know that. I'm not trying to pressure you into going first.
Okay.
Sorry that you're the only one on voice call. Feel free to sit in silence with me. That's okay.
Also, every time I unmute, I'm just like hyper aware of the fact that there's like 3 kids right above me who have been screaming all day.
Wow.
So if you guys hear them,
I haven't heard
so
anything.
sorry.
Don't worry. I haven't heard anything.
Okay, good. I'm gonna be real with you. I don't remember what you asked.
What would you say this book is about? Like, what is the thing at the heart of this book? Rinstip says generational trauma surrounding feelings of loneliness, abandonment, and neglect.
Yeah, a little bit of grief too, because like so much of the book is just about like what they lost and what they don't get to have, and
I think that absolutely, for sure. Ikulo says, I feel like I have about half a book to go. No worries. About the horrors from trauma, the missing pieces of a family. Lambrick says the part where I wrote 3 thesis in the margins is on 162, 163 in my copy. The bit about Ruthie imagining the rowboat capsizing and how that would spell both the end of and the immortality of her thoughts and the way she thinks. Yeah, I think there's something to that, Lambrecht, about like maybe the book is saying something too about you probably just said it better than me, but also like for a book with a very not present narrator in the first half of the story, I think the book is kind of about like the interior world and interiority. I think obviously the book is about housekeeping. That's the title. Catilla says, I absolutely do not get what the point was. I was expecting Ruthie to die, and that would have sent me a message about how the people around ignoring neglect and, in the end, abuse ends up really bad. Like, how did no one make a big deal about them missing half a semester of school and Sylvie doing nothing? And none of that matters in the end, question mark. The ending felt so weird to me. So I really don't understand what message I should have gotten out of it, mostly because of the ending. I think that's a beautiful statement, Kizella. I think you've just said a really beautiful thing. Here is my immediate thought related to that. I don't know that this book, and I know plenty of books do this, but I think one way to look at it is Marilyn Robinson is not going to give you an easy message, because some books you read, the end tells you what happens to the characters, and then you take that ending and you look back at everything the characters did and you judge what they did based on what happened at the end. And then you read from that, quote unquote, a message, which is like, you shouldn't do X or you should do Y. I don't think Marilyn Robinson is going to give us a quote unquote easier answer to that, because I think she's more interested in the, like, this is going to sound so liberal arts for me, but God damn it, I did go to a liberal arts college. She's more interested in the question of the like interiority thing we were just talking about, the what is real and not real in terms of your memory of a person you are grieving versus the person you are failing to take care of right in front of your own eyes. I think she's just more interested in the question of that rather than the, like, here's the hard answer. This is neglect. This is abuse. I think, of course, it is. But I think when you give an ending that tells you how to read everything else, that might actually prevent people from doing the digger deeping on some of the other questions. Again, beautiful comment you just wrote, because I think you're, like, right on the bat about, like, this world doesn't seem to care whether or not they miss school. This world doesn't seem to care about the neglect and the abuse they're facing. So why, like, so what's going on there? Why? Cal says, I think it's at least partially about cycles and how our growth is not limitless, but rather channeled through the experiences we are presented with. Why we often become our parents despite our best efforts. Oh, I love that. Lambert reads a quote. What is thought, after all? What is dreaming? But swim and flow, and the images they seem to animate. And here we find our great affinity with water. For like reflections on water, our thoughts will suffer no changing shock, no permanent displacement. They mock us with their seeming slightness. They persist outside the brisk and ruinous energies of the world. That's the part you marked as thesis, Lambrecht? There's a specific line that I can't find about Ruthie being integrated into Sylvie's shadow that I feel resonates with my point. Also in that section, then presumably would come parturition in some form. I slept between Sylvie's feet under the reach of her arms. There was a pool of water under the hollow of my side, and it was almost warm. I think one of the things that, like, Ruthie's rebirth, I think one other way to look at, like, what is the related to what we're talking about right now. One other way to look at the, like, what is this book about, or, like, what is it trying to do? What is its quote unquote message, or what is its, like, thesis or theme, or what is it trying to explore? Is what are the things that keep recurring from the very start to the very end? What are the things that the characters keep coming back to? One of them is this loneliness thing, right? That Ruthie, like, 17 different times in this book, talks about her mental image of standing outside a lit house in the dark and looking in the window, this distance between her and somebody else. So I think there's stuff to talk about there. I think there's the recurring, like, water, the recurring yeah, the thing Lambrecht has talked about, which I think is probably also at the center of the book, about, like, the quote Lambrecht wrote down to me makes me think, okay, you're staring at your reflection in the water. Somebody throws a big log into the water, your reflection completely changes. And you think, oh, look, I'm a different person, or look, I look different. But then the water eventually stills, and you're the exact same person you were. I think the book has something to say about that. Oh, rune snips. Yes, this is one of my favorite sections in the book. Did you post this one in Discord too? I think you did. Yeah. Oh my. Did people relate to the sections on loneliness in this book? Did people get them? Did people not understand them? Did they like them, hate them? RuneSnips at least liked some of the writing on loneliness. Other thoughts? Other people's opinions?
I feel like the whole book, I'd be like, I'm not 100% sure what you're saying right now.
Mm.
I feel like I do. I'm with you on the vibe. I like it. I like what you're saying, but I'm not 100% sure what you're actually saying to me.
I had to reread a lot of sections on loneliness for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what made it
The
such
whole
a
time
slow
I was
read.
reading,
Is
I'm
every
like,
time you get to a section where Marilyn Robinson is just like mic dropping on loneliness, I'm like, I have to read that 3 times for sure.
yeah, the whole time I was reading, I'm like, I feel like I have to reread this whole thing, and I feel like I would get it so much better on like a second go through. But
Yeah. It's weird. I think there are like, to be like, one other thought I had too is I'm like, man, I wish I would have read this book when I was 24 and more lonely than I am now, if that makes sense. Like, I think
yeah,
and not that I did not appreciate the parts, but I was like, oh my God, 24-year-old Ryan would have fucking ripped his shirt and run out onto the street crying reading this line right now. But and that doesn't mean I'm not moved right now, but oh boy. Lambrick says, I identify with being a person who does not feel like their childhood set them up for successful emotional literacy. Oh, hi, girly. What are you doing? Hi. Do you have any feelings about loneliness and Marilyn Robinson? No? That's a blank stare. I identify with being... sorry, I read that out loud. I relate to the descriptions of loneliness, but I don't relate or understand where Robinson is going with all of that. As a non-native English speaker, I feel like a lot of stuff went over my head. I understood every word or had a thesaurus to look them up, but the overall meaning went beyond me sometimes. I don't think there's anything... Like, I don't think you're alone in that, Ikelos, for sure. I'm sure there's stuff that went over my head, too. Absolutely. And, all of our
same,
heads. Yeah, absolutely.
same.
Absolutely. I also think...
I think the thing that
No,
there you go.
Nope.
I was just gonna say the thing that I felt like that I related to most was there's this thing that can happen when you're a kid and you're going through weird shit with your family
Mm-hmm.
where your life doesn't really feel like it's yours.
Mm-hmm.
You're just like, I don't really know how to word it, but like you're just kind of there along for the ride. And you just kind of accept like, well, I guess whatever's
Yeah.
gonna happen is gonna happen, and you have like no control over any of it, and you just kind of have to sit there and observe your own life and see what happens.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it felt for
You're
Ruthie.
intimately involved, but you're an observer still.
Yeah.
It's like
exactly.
this is the debate you're having is my outcome, like is where I end up, and yet I'm an observer.
Mm-hmm.
Or even, I guess we can talk about that orchard scene too, where Ruthie walks out into the orchard, but like in that moment, Ruthie is sort of an agent. Is like making decisions about what she wants to do a little bit, but then even then, arguably it gets misinterpreted or like misportrayed. Like reading the sheriff. Let's talk about that section, right? So the Lucille has already gone to stay with the neighbor. Sylvie and Ruthie have gone off on their overnight adventure to this crazy woods place and then come back in on the train and then stayed out all night. And the neighbors have already gotten very concerned about them. And one evening, Sylvie is looking for Ruthie, and Ruthie walks off into the night, into the orchard, despite the pressure their family's already under. And she sort of hides from Sylvie. That's the section we're talking about. Thoughts while you were reading that section? Reactions to it? Were you like, Ruthie, what the fuck are you doing? Were you like, oh my god, Ruthie's making a mistake? Were you like, Ruthie's finally making a decision? What were you thinking?
I don't know, just stressed for her in general.
Stressed.
I was just stressed
Stress
for
is
her
a
the
great
whole
answer.
book.
Stressed, yeah. Stress is a great answer. Yeah. Yeah. Especially like, to me, the real heartbreak of that section is I was feeling stressed, and then when the sheriff showed up, I was like, oh no, it's all being misunderstood. I guess another way to phrase this question is just like, do you think Sylvie and Ruthie belong together? Like as friends, as family, as like, are they the same? Are they similar enough that they belong together? Do they understand each other or not? Because I think you can make an argument no or yes. Does Sylvie understand Ruthie? Does Ruthie understand Sylvie? Are they actually like two halves of a whole kind of thing?
I felt like I wanted them to be together because like they have a connection, but also, my God, somebody else needed to step in.
Yeah.
Like, together, have a relationship, have some kind of bond, sure, but like,
Sure.
the whole time you're just like, man, if only somebody else could just jump in.
It's no fun to look at
a
kid's life and be like, this is a parental figure who is not doing what is best for this kid. I think probably a near universal reading of this book would be like,
yeah.
So like Ruthie's life from a outside perspective is not better in terms of passing tests, in terms of a future for yourself, in terms of a roof over your head. Sylvie should not be responsible for a child, I think is a probably near universal. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a probably near universal. Like, we can all feel that. It breaks our like, I don't know about you guys, but like, it breaks my fucking heart, and it makes us feel something bad. It makes us feel something to have Sylvie in charge of Ruthie. But then, is there a flip side to that coin? Because I think there is, and I'm willing to put my money on it. I think there's a flip side to that coin with this weird, fucked up family. I don't know anybody who understands Sylvie, and I don't know anybody who understands Ruthie. And I think it's possible that the only people who understand them are each other. And what do we do with that information? That doesn't make it better. That doesn't like absolve anything. But does that mean anything? Does that... If you're a person in a world who feels like truly no one understands what's going on inside of your world, minus this person you've been compared to, minus this person you've been living with, is that the salve for loneliness, or is that the source of it? Is basically like the thing I keep fucking coming back to, and I don't know the answer to. Is like, is Ruthie's life worse because she's with... Obviously, it's bad because she's with Sylvie. But is it worse than that bad because she's with the one person who she has been compared to, and maybe even in some ways like fashioned her life after emotionally? Or is it better because she's with someone who quote unquote understands her? Although there's a big fucking asterisk on her life, on that whole comment. I think they're very much the same, but I think they just run away from dealing with reality. I think there's some running tendencies, some transience for sure. Maybe there's a version of Ruthie for which that is not the case, but Sylvie is the only one who actually has Ruthie's interests somewhat at heart. I like that phrasing because I think it makes me think things. Yeah, like
I would also...
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, sometimes the unfortunate thing is like sometimes there's just like no good option.
Yeah.
And so like them great aunts, they didn't want to be there. Like they wanted to be there out of like
a sense of proprietariness.
We should.
Yeah,
somebody
we
has
need
to do it.
Somebody should.
Yeah.
But we don't need to. Yeah, we don't want to.
But like they clearly didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
They didn't genuinely give a shit about doing it. They just felt like they had to. And so like in the sense of like, well, it's better than like nothing.
Yeah.
Or, you know, I don't know. So, like, on the one hand, I'm like, yeah, I'm glad she had Sylvie because they had something there. There's a connection. They love each other. But it's also like, man, I wish you two could have just, like, met each other once, like,
But
Ruthie's,
no one's
like,
no one's
on
rooting
her own,
for
an
the
adult.
absolute fucked up life that Ruthie is 100% going to have with Sylvie as a
Right.
responsible adult. No one's rooting for that, and yet there's this thing, which is like,
Yeah.
Ruthie is obviously special in a way that like she has. To me, this is why the book tackles loneliness, is because to me, and I'm just going to put my opinion out there at this exact moment. To me, the genius of Marilyn Robinson in this book is the contraposing, or like the contrasting of a book on loneliness from a person so fucked up by emotional and family trauma and so in her very personality attracted to the darkness and being alone and all of that, contrasting that with being a child who obviously needs a caretaker and needs someone to keep the house. And of course, the worst person in many ways for that job is Sylvie. And in some few ways, the best person for that job is Sylvie. And that is emotion. That is like that's a minefield. It's a minefield because of course it's not best for Ruthie. And I think it still might be in some ways the only person who gets Ruthie. And that's not ideal. Like, in an ideal world, the principal is way more fucking involved. In an ideal world, the neighbors are paying way closer attention to these people much earlier. In an ideal world, when the state gets involved in matters of this, they have good outcomes. And like, but Marilyn Robinson knows that like the real lives of people who read these books, just like the real lives of all people, are that like the ideal world is fucking flawed and puts people in these insane situations that
What
it
year
just
was
makes me
this
sick
written?
and
Like,
go ahead.
what year was this? Like, when is this supposed to have
This is
taken
80.
place?
I don't know when it takes place. It was published in I think 1980. I would guess it could be contemporary with 1980-ish, maybe earlier.
I don't,
Probably
to me,
earlier.
it felt like
No
this
phones,
feels
right?
like 60s.
Yeah. Do they have phones?
Like,
Do they have
this
a
feels
telephone
like
in their
my
house?
mom's era.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
I don't know if they have a phone. I don't think so. They're also super rural, like rural as hell. But
Yeah.
so okay, so now that I've just made my big case, Lambrick says the 50s. Sorry, what were you going to say about that point, Carly?
Oh, I was just gonna say there was something to like this vibe of like, yeah, these kids aren't going to school and like they're aware of it, but like nobody's really doing anything. Like,
Yeah.
like this family's clearly in like a really shitty situation, but like nobody's stepping in. That just like very much reminded me of like stories I've heard from like when my mom was growing up, and like everybody's just kind of on their own doing their own thing, and the stuff that people like not got away with is not really the right word, but
no, I mean in a less
stuff that
observed society, absolutely, yeah. In a less,
yeah, like stuff that like family back then could get away with that like you just could not get away with.
Yeah, for sure.
Today.
Absolutely. There's a conformity versus difference versus dysregulation conversation that is not black and white that animates this question. Absolutely, Lambrecht. That's well said. First, I thought it was bad, but they seem to be on the same wavelength and they need each other. There's no real model for not conforming who isn't going to also make you stand by me run across a trestle bridge in the 2 minutes before the train comes. So I think what Lambrecht is saying here is basically, to put a much less elegant point on it, I love that. There is, in some ways, is Sylvie giving Ruthie the freedom to not conform to a very repressed, very religious 1950s Midwestern town with very strong ideas about what women are allowed to do, and specifically these two people are allowed to do. On the other hand, we have to talk about the whole fucking forest, like lake and forest big day that they go on. Because after I've just spent 20 minutes, probably 5 minutes, 10 minutes, I don't know, talking about why I think Sylvie might be the only person who can understand Ruthie and therefore might be the only person who should be in charge of Ruthie. I also think Sylvie maybe did the most fucked up thing in this book by taking Ruthie to the woods and I think that it's possible Ruthie's whole perspective is so skewed by being forced into that situation that we can't trust anything she says afterwards because she is just once again surviving another trauma. Let's talk about that day because we got to try and understand it, right? It's a weird. It's like the center of the book. It's like the climactic action, basically, especially in terms of plot. Like if one thing happens, it's this day where Sylvie very confusedly wants to take Ruthie to a place in the middle of the woods, commits a crime to get there, does not dress her properly, definitely doesn't feed her properly, takes her to a ruined property in the middle of the woods where quote unquote weird children sometimes show up that are not actually real, and then abandons her there, and then eventually comes back and takes her back, but not until like basically 24 hours have passed. The kind of shit that absolutely would get CPS called on you and absolutely would get your kids taken away from you, 100%. What are people's reaction to that whole? Because I think that's a confusing section, and I'm still a little bit confused by it. What are people's reaction to that whole happening? Like, what's going on there? You could still do that in Europe? Maybe. I don't know. You you definitely shouldn't, but you maybe could. I don't know. What's the deal with the children? What's the deal with the little kids running around, the gray kids or whatever they are?
I was so confused by that. Every time it came up, I was just like, all right, sure.
Yeah. What's the deal with the children? What's the deal with the day in the ruined house? I was genuinely thinking that was leading to Sylvie killing Ruthie because it was so fucked up. It was very fucked up, and it reads like a horror novel. It reads like a horror movie.
Yeah, it's really unsettling.
Yeah, it's super unsettling. Yeah, agreed. Yeah, very. My stomach was flipping like because Ruthie is the perfect type of victim for this kind of shit, where she's just so happy to go along, and so. Are the kids real? What are people's thoughts on the kids? What's going on with the children? Sylvie glanced at me a little surprised. But you'll want to watch for the children, Ruthie says. Yes, all right. I think you better just stay in one place and be very quiet. The children feel almost like a hope for something supernatural, like trying to catch these mysterious kids might reveal some deeper truth about the world. It is the most blatant symbol of Sylvie's childlike mind. So you feel that they are Sylvie's almost childlike hope that there's something more going on here than just a ruined house in the woods, something magical, something supernatural. One of the more heartbreaking things to me about that this book portrays is Ruthie as the older sister being so willing to apologize for or make up for the failings of the adults in their lives. I think Ruthie has this like protective thing over Lucille in the first half of the book where an adult in their life does something fucked up, like commit suicide and leave them there, or the great aunt's basically abandoning them, or Sylvie's weirdness about sitting in the dark and not paying attention to things. And Ruthie is so quick to almost apologize for them or argue on their behalf. That I think is really hard. I think it happens in the real world, in our real lives, when you have a lack of, when like a person who should be a parent to you is instead somebody who you have to defend or you have to in some way do something. And I think that specific instinct of Ruthie's is the thing that is being sort of tested and explored in this scene to me, which is Sylvie promises a magical day in the woods, and it does end up magical, but there are no kids. And to make sure that there are no kids, Ruthie gets fucking abused and neglected in the woods to stay there. Rinsip said it could be psychosis, but Ruthie wants to explain it away. She does. She does want to explain it away. But then, towards the end, I think we get a real moment of change for Ruthie, which is on my copy, it's page 154. After she discovers that Sylvie has left. So after she's sitting there, she's waiting for the kids, nothing's happening, she's not eating enough food, she's cold, etc. Sylvie was gone, she'd left without a word or a sound. A page later, the shore is empty. Sylvie's not there. She says, I knew why Sylvie felt there were children in the woods. I felt so too, though I did not think so. To me, I felt so too, though I did not think so. To me, that indicates the weird line Ruthie is walking, which is that, like, this is a magical place. And whatever led Sylvie to feel like there might be children in the woods, I'm so sympathetic to that. And I also have this back part of my brain that is like, my parental figure has just abandoned me in the woods. And I think we start to see the realization, which is like the difference between what Ruthie feels and what Ruthie thinks. And the finally understanding that Sylvie is maybe in some sort of psychosis, but either way, not being the parent that she should be. Lembrick says there's also the long sense that Sylvie is far more invested in living in a version of bumfuck Idaho that she remembers from her childhood. She runs into people on the street who she refuses to acknowledge are the older versions of people that she once knew. She still goes to the train station and reads about the outside world and talks to people who are traveling past, but she's pinned down by this demi-parental responsibility, and Sylvie is inviting Ruthie into the kinder version of her own life. Oh, dude, that's so interesting. She runs into people on the street who she refuses to acknowledge are the older versions of the people she once knew. That's why I'm so happy we've done this, because I didn't read it that way. But that makes way more sense. I was like, Sylvie... So Sylvie sees all these people on the street. Lambrecht is saying those are actually her grown-up high school classmates. But Sylvie doesn't recognize them and instead says, it's strangers who remind me of this person, because she's living in the past. She's not living in the present. That makes sense. The reality is, they're people she knows. She's just refusing to interact with reality. Okay. It's been an hour. We should probably start working towards wrapping thoughts. Can I pull focus for a second to a plot thing? Absolutely. This also harkens to the theme of Ghost and the hauntings of the past in some way. Oh, Cal, I was going to say that. Thank you. Let me say that very quickly. I also think part of the vibe of the day in the forest is sort of reckoning with... I think Marilyn Robinson... I think there's a thing going on in this book, which is like the reality of Fingerbone, Idaho is not the full story of Fingerbone, Idaho, right? There's this line, it's the last page. It's the second to last page, third to last page. All this is fact, Ruthie says. Fact explains nothing. All this that I've said is fact. Fact explains nothing. On the contrary, it is fact that requires explanation. That's the kind of shit, by the way, you will not get in books that are not written by genius fucking people like Marilyn Robinson. All this is fact. Fact explains nothing. The fact of Fingerbone, Idaho is what you find in the newspapers. It's the story of the train that derails, the story of their mom committing suicide. The explanation that goes way beyond the fact is the sense that the lake is haunted, the sense that the people are all waiting under the water in some sort of proto-heaven, waiting for everyone else to join them. The sense that the flood is near biblical in proportion. You live in this, like, you can tell us the stories about the facts about what Fingerbone is, but to live there is something else entirely. And Marilyn Robinson can write that because she's an amazing writer. But I don't know. That's just a big vibe for me. Big vibe for me. These ghost stories. Lamprecht is a dummy. Lamprecht says plot point. At the end of that forest interlude, they hop the train. They wind up in a car with an old woman who, before they hop back off, says of Ruthie, she's getting growed. Sylvie replied, she's a good girl. Like you always said, the old woman says. The woman winked at me. So is Sylvie riding the trains with other habitual train riders and telling them about Ruthie, or is that a fever dream? Oh, boy. I don't think that I even processed that like you always said line when I first read that part. I think she's got to be riding the trains then. I think she's got to be riding the trains. Bye, Iculus. Thanks for being here. I really enjoyed the book club. Just wanted to let you know. Thank you. Other concluding thoughts. How do we feel? Are you happy you read it? Are you unhappy you read it? I have no you're not going to hurt my feelings. Are you happy you read it? Are you unhappy you read it? Thank you for I will say thank you for taking on the challenge of this book, because I do think it was a challenge. For me personally, I'm sure for other people too.
I was glad I read it. It's not this kind of book that I probably would have read on my own.
Yeah.
So it's always nice to dip into something that I would have missed otherwise. But I have a question for you though.
What's up?
How do you feel about Lucille? Because after I finished, I was looking up a few things about the book, and man, everybody hates Lucille.
I think that Lucille is the most normal fucking character in this book, but I understand hating her. I mean, you hate her because you spent, I don't know. How do I feel about Lucille? I really, really relate to the scene where Lucille goes to the diner, sees the magazines, and is like, I'm going to improve my life. Because I think if you've ever grown up in a Midwestern town, at least if you're there and you're also like me, you read a book or you see a magazine or you see something on TV and you're like, oh my God, there's hope. I'm getting the fuck out of here. What's the line about the Midwest that Marilyn Robinson writes? Oh my God, I'm not gonna be able to find it, but it's a line about like the people were talking about how hard their lives were, which is exactly the type of thing you do in a place that has nothing else of note. Something like that. God damn it. I will be thinking about that line until the day that I die. That is so Midwestern. It's like, of course, we talk about how hard the winters are. We talk about how hot the summers are. We talk about this shit because we have nothing else of note. But that is a part of the world where people tend to boast of discomfort and hardship, having little else worthy of mention. I wrote fuck in all caps beside that line because that is so Indiana. I think that Lucille is just the most normal character in the thing. And also I understand not liking her because she doesn't share the same weird dream space that I think most of Ruthie's family feels. But what did you think about her? How'd you feel about Lucille?
I liked her. It felt like defensive when I saw people hating her. Honestly,
I also loved her burning the dress before even pulling the pins. She makes the dress. She spends all this time. She ruins a relationship with her sister, and then fucking tosses it in the oven and burns it before even trying it on.
Yeah,
it's so fun. It's so funny to me.
I felt like I could relate to both Ruthie and Lucille in like different ways. Because like there were times when I was a kid where I was like fiercely defensive over adult figures in my life who like did not deserve to be defended.
Relatable.
And like wanted to be near them even though like I should not probably have been. And then there was other times where I was Lucille and I'm like, you guys are all freaking crazy. Yeah. I gotta go. I don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah.
If anything, I was just sad because like Sylvie comes in and has like this bond with Ruthie, which only like drives Ruthie and Lucille even farther apart.
Yeah.
Which then leaves Ruthie feeling abandoned again.
I think the most generous version of reading Lucille's second half of this book is my sister had a terrible caretaker who basically like split us apart and encouraged her own, like, use whatever words you want to use here, like psychosis, like, encouraged her apart from me and stole her away from me. And I think that's really sad. Yeah, I think Lucille's
Yeah.
life is tragic here because we have to talk about it now that you mentioned this. The book ends on Lucille. The book ends on Lucille. Imagine Lucille in Boston at a table in a restaurant. This is why I think we should talk about the ending at least for 2 seconds. The book does not end by talking about what Ruthie and Sylvia are doing, although that is also mentioned. The last paragraph is, imagine Lucille in Boston at a table in a restaurant waiting for a friend. She's tastefully dressed. This is us in the dark looking through the lit window of the house that is the central metaphor of the entire book. We are imagining somebody. We are lonely, but we are trying to cross through the pane of glass to see who is inside of the house. She's tastefully dressed. A lot of description of her looks. Her water glass is 2/3 of a ring on the table. All of these things don't happen. Sylvie and I don't visit her. My mother is not there. My grandmother in her house slippers is not there. My grandfather is not there. We are nowhere in Boston. However Lucille may look, she will never find us there or any trace of sign. We pause nowhere in Boston. We are not there. No one watching this woman smear her initials in the steam on her water glass with her first finger or slip cellophane pockets of oyster crackers into her handbag for the seagulls could know that her thoughts are thronged by our absence, or know how she does not, etc., etc., etc. Watch, hope, wait for me and for Sylvie. It's the thing where it's like you carry, like, it's grief, it's loneliness. Like, she carries with Lucille as a person is going to go live a quote unquote normal life, but of course she won't be normal because of these people in her lives who have found their way out of her life. And why end the book on Lucille? It's such a weird writing decision, and I'm not in the habit of doubting Marilyn Robinson, but it's got to be because of that central metaphor of the whole book. Like, it's got to be the, like, you're in the dark, longing for what's in the window, trying to imagine it, and of course you cannot imagine it because of course the distance between this and that, to quote that other line, is too great. The distance between this and that is too great. Anyways, I need to read some comments because I've been ranting. Thanks for letting me rant, chat. I'm happy to have read a book by this living author that I had never read a book by before. Yeah, it makes me curious about Gilead. I didn't have enough feelings about the book to care that I read it, but I'm happy that I participated in book club. Hell yeah. I adore the book, even though still I don't know everything I feel about it. At some point, I do want to purchase a copy for my shelf, since you can find poetry on any page. I wouldn't have read this on my own, so I was glad to read something outside my comfort zone. But I probably won't go back and finish the book after book club. Totally. Letting you ranch. Did I say ranch? Oops. Rant. The theme of the book is also the idea of stability and the clear want of stability by the characters. You find stability in the objects around you or your family. Yeah, and the, like, housekeeping, the idea of, like, keeping house, a stable location. Any other final thoughts from anybody? Any lines you particularly want to read back, just because that's fun too sometimes? I was really intrigued by the way Marilyn Robinson is not a person who is afraid to write a sentence that tells you directly what, quote unquote, she thinks. It's the narrator, it's not her, but, like, she'll just say, like, loneliness is X, which is one way of writing a book, right? But in the exact same book, she also, much more subtly, is doing things like making Sylvie sit in the dark very early on before we know anything. Like, on page, like, whatever page Sylvie first comes in, you see these little hints at who Sylvie will be that I think one of those actions is yelling at us with a megaphone, telling you this is what the book is about. The other one is whispering it under the covers at night. This is what the book is about. And I just, I'm sure on a reread I would catch even more of that too. There's a line early on about, like, that Ruthie knows Lucille so well that what she does when she's mad is blank. And then when Sylvie and Lucille first interact, Lucille is doing blank. I don't remember what it is. Biting her lip. That's what it is. Biting her lip. Lucille bites her lip the first time she's meeting Sylvie. And you only know exactly what Lucille is thinking if you also remember the phrase earlier in the book, which is saying, when Lucille bites her lip, she is irked. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Oh. Anyways. The most she's ever sympathized from a distance perspective with Lucille. I like that. So in a way, the ending is the most Ruthie has ever sympathized with Lucille, considering Lucille. Anyways, if nobody else has any concluding thoughts, thank you for reading a book. I know this book was probably would not have been everyone's or even most people's choice. But speaking of choices, this is called a segue. We're gonna do book club different. We're gonna do book club different from here on out. So I'll post this in the Discord later too. But we thought we would maybe change up how, and by we I mean Carly, who's in this call with me, is gonna help me out a bunch with this. We're gonna change up how we pick what books we read for book club. We're gonna do some votes, kind of like the past. However, the person we're gonna rotate the job of narrowing down what books we're voting between. So here's the vague plan. I'm gonna post a link in the Discord right now where you can recommend us a book to read for book club. The only real rule is that it's less than 500 pages, just because we don't want to do long ass books. I don't know that we'll read it. I don't know that we'll have enough people finish the book if we do a long ass book. You can recommend us a book. It could be sci-fi, fantasy, whatever. No genre limitations, whatever. It could be poetry. Recommend us a book. All you have to do is love the book. Just tell us why you like it in the form. And then we're going to rotate each month-ish. One person from the community will get to pick 4 books from that list of recommended books for us to vote on. So if we get like 10 recommendations from people in chat, one person for the next month, it's going to be Carly. Carly's going to go through all the recommendations, pick 4 books that look interesting to her, and then present those to us. And then all of us are going to vote on the 4 books, and whichever one wins, we'll read for the next month. Idea being, you guys get to recommend books. We rotate who's picking the books so that different stuff gets picked and different, and it's more you guys leading what ends up in front of us rather than me. That's the plan. Little into Carly. Shout out to Carly. Carly's going to make a spreadsheet that is definitely going to be just as beautiful as any Evo would ever make.
No, don't say that. Don't say that.
Evo typed the same shit. Yeah, and we'll see how that works. If that works really well, then awesome. If it doesn't work really well, then we'll change it. For now, we're just gonna have you guys give one recommendation for a book, and then if we run out of books or if we're low on books, we'll have other people give recommendations too. Anybody can recommend a book. I'm gonna put it in the Discord, so we may get like a ton of recommendations from people in Discord rather than just people in book club. Yeah, that's the deal. Will you also make a forum post with all this info too? Absolutely. If I remember. If I don't remember, please DM me. Evo is my memory. Evo DMs me and is like, hey, you didn't do this. Hey, you forgot to do this. And I'm like, oh, fuck, you're right. You're so right. Can we get access to the full list of recs? Yeah, I don't know. Probably. I think probably once the spreadsheet is...
yeah. My plan was after I finish the spreadsheet to share it. That way, like, people know, like, what has and hasn't already been...
Hell yeah.
Like, added to the list.
Hell yeah. I think that makes sense. Thanks, guys. The book club is such a little labor of love over here. We're just hanging out in the corner, talking nerdy shit, talking books, challenging each other. I like it. Thank you. I'm having fun. I hope you are too. Thanks, Carly, for volunteering to do this work. Hopefully that means that I will be less of a wrench in the gears, and I won't slow book club down by failing to pick books or whatever, you know? Now Carly gets to be the wrench in the gears.
Oh, great.
Say what?
I can't wait.
Yeah, Kyle, we'd love to have you. No pressure, but we'd love to have you. I like cosplaying a student again. Thanks for hosting. Yeah, of course, my pleasure. The real thanks is to Megan, who made me a latte and is hanging out with our daughter. So I'm going to get out of here. I'll go post the form. Does anybody know what books they're going to recommend? I haven't really decided yet. Anybody know what book? Carly, are you going to recommend a book?
Yeah, I have a few in mind. I have to narrow it down to one.
You do have to narrow it down because you can only pick one.
I know, but I'm so indecisive.
Catilla knows one. Jab knows one. Perfect. I can't wait to see it. I'm so indecisive. All right, you guys are the fucking best. I'll go post it in announcements right now. I appreciate you. And no stream until Tuesday. I'll see you Tuesday. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Carly. Thanks for joining. You're the best.
Yeah, no problem, Peepaw.
Don't fucking call me that. Is Peepaw, is it like affectionate, Peepaw? Or is it derogatory? Peepaw Urban Dictionary. I think it just means I'm old, but a silly nickname. Wait. That's not it. A term for a grandfather. Often confused as a term for penis? What? Anyways, on that note,
now I
we're
actually have to take it there.
I'm trying to get you to stop, so maybe that worked in my favor. Anyways, thanks, guys. I'll see you guys later. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, I cut Carly off.